we are only a few weeks away from knowing the final college football playoff rankings. But as it currently stands, I just want to talk about which of the teams, in the picture right now, so either, locked in or like on the bubble, are real contenders to actually win the Natty or are frauds. Frauds not meaning necessarily, they're a bad team, but in your mind, near zero chance to actually win the national championship. Mario, I want to start with you and hear what your thoughts on this are.
I mean, there's so many teams that have, in my opinion, 0% chance to win the national championship. Yeah. I'm just going to list the teams that I think can win the Natty. I think it really boils down to like 5 or 6. I forget the exact number I had. The teams that I think can actually win a national championship are Oregon, shout out Ryan and Kevin, Ohio State. I hate saying this, but I do think Texas has the team that can win a national championship.
Appreciate you, bud.
And then it's
Mike's never smiled that big.
And then it's Georgia, and this is like fringe for me, but I'll say Tennessee.
Okay.
Those are the only teams I think actually can go out there.
Big Ten and SEC.
That's surprising, right?
No.
Yeah, it is.
No,
the playoffs are going to look like the SEC and Big Ten Invitational.
No.
As they have
it has been.
the last 8 seasons.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan. And Tyler's been pretty consistent with this as well. Don't think Penn State's real. I think if they played any of those teams I named, with the exception of like maybe Tennessee, if like they start off slow or something, that's like the only team where like maybe Penn State would hang in there. But I really think like there's no way they could hang in my opinion, against Oregon, Ohio State, and like a playoff game. I'm not taking them. Actually, they might be able to beat Texas.
They can for sure beat Texas. The last couple weeks,
Dude, I'm just saying, the way Quinn's looked.
they almost lost to Arkansas. Vanderbilt.
Quinn had an MRI this week. Mike's shaking over there, so I feel like we got to pass to him. Is there any teams that you want to say 100% are frauds that other people might think would win? I guess besides Penn State.
I mean, every other team to me is kind of a fraud.
Okay, fair enough. Mike, what about you?
Yeah, honestly, I kind of just, as I was making this list, or like going over the list that we had written up and then kind of going over the individual teams, certain things I kind of just wanted to say really quick. So it's like, Penn State, 90% of the season, I was 100% on board with you. I was like, oh, this team is just kind of irrelevant. They're falsely kind of withheld in the standings here. But the only reason why I think they might actually be a relatively decent playoff team is the fact that they held Ohio State to their lowest point total of the entire year.
It was a home game.
20.
It was a home game, but that's 20. And then even against Oregon, Ohio State scored 21. And so
they scored a lot more than that against Oregon, but
was it?
Ohio State?
Yeah.
31.
Maybe. Oh, yeah, 31. I think, so I think the defense kind of speaks a lot of volumes for that team. I think they are a contender for that reason. Texas, I mean, I'm never going to not say that we're a contender. I think we're amazing. And the only other thing I wanted to say for, like, frauds contenders that isn't kind of mirroring what Mario said, Indiana, I love the Hoosiers, but I think if they played an even somewhat tight game, like anywhere within 20, I think they shouldn't be in the playoffs. I think this team is not at all what we saw through the first 9 weeks. And I've always been, the guy to say, like, you play the cards that you're dealt and the season that you're dealt. They played it really well. Past 3 weeks since they played Michigan, actually even Michigan State, their offense has been on such a fast downward spiral and is very worrisome. I think that was the only thing that was holding that team up. And I think, if they play that game close, they should not be. They are very, very fraudulent.
Yeah, I don't know how you could flip back to the Penn State's legit now after watching what that Minnesota game was. They beat Minnesota. Minnesota, 26-25. All right? So I think that game's a very good comp as to what type of team this is. It is very difficult to win 10 games in college football season.
Yeah.
So they deserve a shot in the playoffs.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't think they should be ranked 4. Craziness.
Yeah.
Anytime Penn State is not one of the top 5 teams in the country. I think it's a stretch to say they're one of the
I'll die on that
best
hill.
10.
I
But
don't care.
a 10-win team deserves to be in. They're probably gonna get their 11th win this week.
Yeah.
But I obviously feel Penn State's a fraud, but I don't really want to hammer that. I'll just kind of go through my list. Texas for sure contender. I don't think they get it done, but they 100% have the talent and ability on that team to go win, especially if they win the SEC championship, get a bye. depending where that falls in the ranking, they might have a semi-favorable game against like an 8 or a 9 seed or something like that in the next round, and then they're in the semis. Once you're in the semis, anything can happen. Penn State, I already said fraud. Notre Dame, this is a hot take, I know, for the podcast, but I'm going to say contender. It's not even the Notre Dame of past seasons. The Notre Dame of past seasons would have collapsed by now.
Yeah.
I've not seen a Notre Dame team, when they lost early in the season to NIU, we were all like, this is the Notre Dame team we see every year. We bet their over win total, and then they drop like 3 or 4 games. Well, their over win total hit already. They've gotten better and better as the season goes on, and they've kind of given up the passing game they tried to do early in the season. And they're strictly a defense and running the ball team, and it's working tremendously. I know they don't have the hardest schedule. I know, they just blew out the 18th ranked team in Army, but you can say what you want. The Army doesn't play in a conference. But I think they're a contender specifically because of some of the matchups they might draw. Like if I see an Indiana Notre Dame game, which is a possible matchup if Notre Dame gets at that 6-7 spot, Indiana towards the back half, or a Boise State Notre Dame game. Yeah. And then they have to play the winner of the Big 12 after that. You're telling me you don't think Notre Dame is going to be able to get in the semis? And like I said, I think any team that can make the semis has a legit shot at this. I think they blow those teams out. So on the flip side, I don't think there's any real big contenders in the Big 12. I think that Indiana clearly is not a contender after what you saw against Ohio State. They're going to have to be Ohio State-esque teams to win. There's no world that happens. Boise State, if we're really being honest, is not one of the top 15 best teams in college football. It sucks to say. I love Ashton Genty. They played their best game of the year week 2 against Oregon. Yep. That game, I've never seen a loss prop a team up so much as this 3-point loss. Recently, they beat UNLV by 5, which I think is a great comp for them, actually. 3-9 Nevada by 7, and last week 2-9 Wyoming by 4. So, if any of these teams in the top 10 are playing Nevada and Wyoming, these are 40-point blowouts. This Boise State team is going to get waxed by whoever they play. And then in the ACC, last thing I want to say, I think SMU and Miami actually can both be contenders. Again, I think just because of who they might draw in the bracket. I don't think they beat.
I'll add SMU.
I think they can score. I think both teams can score enough points. If a team they draw has a bad offensive night, I think SMU is likely. SMU and Miami can both probably score on most teams in the country, except maybe if Ohio State plays really good defense. But we've seen Oregon be able to score on them. Yeah. So if they have a defensive game like they did against Oregon and some mental mishaps, I think they can beat those type of teams. Granted, they'll have to find a way to stop them. Yeah. But I'm going to throw those 2 teams in as both the fringe bottom of contenders, but I think they can score enough to win some games.
Damn. Yeah, I have the, obviously, ACC and Big 12 completely out. 0 chance to be a contender at all.
Figured.
Just because of what you said. We've talked about a lot of teams going to the SEC and having to play real defenses. The second Miami or SMU or maybe somehow Clemson has to play a real defense, they're going to get cooked. I mean, it's not even going to be a sweat. The ACC's defenses look like the worst defenses in the entire college football league, in my opinion. Besides Clemson, Clemson has the stars. They have the 5 stars that have come on and been good. Every other one, SMU's defense, I watch every single game they play. That one, they haven't really had to play anyone. They really looked really good against Pitt. Pitt was extremely overrated, unbelievably overrated because they were undefeated. And that was it. BYU was one of the second games of the season, another team that's all of a sudden blinked and they're completely overrated. So I don't know. I just don't see either of those teams having a chance. I mean, Big 12, like we already said.
I'll retract SMU.
Yeah, I don't think they have a chance.
Short-lived.
I don't think they have a chance. And my secret one,
I about a minute and a half.
Yep.
It's Mike's record, by the way.
I was gonna hate. I don't like Notre Dame, but I was gonna say they have a really good chance to be contenders. But I don't think any world that the Oregon-Ohio State winner doesn't beat 5, in my opinion. Even if Ohio State loses, I think it'll be a close game.
I agree.
So
no, you mean the loser?
Yeah, the loser will not be not below 5.
A 2-loss Ohio State, I disagree.
So Notre Dame would have their best win.
No, it doesn't have to be Notre Dame. I think there's a shot that you could see a Penn State artificially held up there.
But I'm saying so for I was talking about Notre Dame being a contender. I was only going to say they were a contender
if they're the 5 spot.
They could have been the 5
because
seed.
the 5 spot's the sweet spot. Okay, that's fair.
That's it.
That's fair.
But I don't see that even being a possibility. So Notre Dame is now out, in my opinion. But the teams that I really like this year specifically are the defensive teams, and I think the Ohio State, Penn State teams that can win it. Georgia at any time could be unbelievable, so it's got to be Georgia. I think actually, I'm not gonna lie, this is kind of messed up, and you're gonna think I hate it, but I don't think Texas has a chance to win. I've watched their last 5 out of 6 games. The only game they were remotely decent was against Florida when they killed Florida at home. Last game was against Kentucky. If Quinn does that in any other top 12 team, they lose by 25. Yeah. They barely beat Vanderbilt. They barely beat Arkansas. I mean, they've looked absolutely terrible.
They started up here and they've just been.
No, and it's what we've seen. It's what I
Georgia
knew.
Game shook them up.
Yeah, I knew what was going to happen. Yeah, exactly. And I just think that if Quinn's hurt and he's out, maybe
he's not.
He's playing. He's 100% good. Yeah, I just don't think Quinn is now unraveling in the way I think the entire world saw him, and he's just jumping.
I mean, it's what we say. Quinn in a big spot. I know diehard Texas fans that say they are not comfortable with Quinn Ewers to deliver in a pressure.
And you were saying in a big spot. I'm just talking about against Arkansas, Vanderbilt, Kentucky, last year.
No, yeah. I mean, the team itself,
so
obviously.
It's almost, and I want to agree with you. If Texas, I didn't think could play good defense. I think they have the pieces to play good defense, and they have a good enough O-line to run the ball. But again, the similarities are so similar to me. I mean, everything about the situation is so similar to me with the Kelly Bryant, Trevor Lawrence thing, because if you don't make the switch early, you're stuck with them. Yeah. And now you have to grind it out with mediocre quarterback play sometimes, right, against bad teams. Yeah. And then you have no choice. You cannot throw Arch in in a playoff game for his first start. You cannot do that. Yeah. It's impossible. So, yeah, I don't agree with you completely that they have no chance to win.
I understand.
I think there's a chance they can win, because I think there's a lot of weird stuff that can happen in this 12-team playoff where maybe 2 of not the top 7 teams are in the Final Four, and you can draw some really weird matchups with a team that did get a bye. I know you don't think ACC or Big 12 have a chance, but if they go up against somehow bad teams, they're in the semis. If Texas draws a Big 12 or an ACC team in the semis, they're in the Natty, and then the Natty, who?
Oh, yeah, I see the point for sure. I just had I only had 5 locks or 5 contenders in my brain.
That's fair.
All of them happen to be, all of them except for Georgia happen to be top 7 in total defense or top 10. Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State, just because of defensively, they're the only teams that I see that can score and play defense on either whatever the game dictates. I think they can do. Sometimes their defense don't look good and they score. Sometimes their offense doesn't look good. Defense rebuttals. I couldn't say that from the other teams. Georgia, I will never ever say that they're not at least contenders when you have Kirby Smart, especially in a 12-team playoff. And then Tennessee, again, a team that's so balanced when in a time, if Nico doesn't make mistakes, Tennessee's defense is one of the best in the country in an SEC that's tough to play in. If Nico plays well, the running game's good. I think they're an actual real contender with that defense. So I'm just a defense. I think defense is going to win it this year because these offenses are, for the first time, these offensive are programs have to play in big games. None of these teams have ever had to do that. There's only 7 teams every year that play in big games. It's the Georgia, Ohio States, Michigans, Alabamas, and then you sneak in the LSU every year, Clemson's. There's not really many teams that have to play in holy shit, do or die, Stadium Rockin'. So I don't have many.
We're pretty similar on the locks. The only difference is you have Penn State, I have Texas.
Yeah.
But I mean, honestly, that was the one teams I was kind of
a little flippity flip.
Yeah. That
It'll
game,
be fun. It's gonna be so
flip.
fun. Yeah.
Well, let us know in the comments who you think are legitimate contenders out of these teams and which teams are frauds. It'll all get to play out in front of our eyes, so I can't wait. We're going to be talking a lot
Someone's
going to
be right. That's the best
If you're not subscribed, drop a subscribe for us. Head into the weekend. Enjoy your Saturday rivalry week football, and we'll see you next week.
Michigan.